Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Welcome to Friday's edition. It's Friday already, yet again. Welcome to Friday's edition of the DCEU Daily. And we have two pieces of news that celebrate DC, because unlike some people, I'm a DC fan who wants to celebrate the whole of DC, the comics, the live action. This is what we're here for, I'm sure. But there's certain people who want to destroy DC just to get what they want. We'll talk about those people, those very, very bad people, at the end of the show. Loki composer Natalie Holt will score Batgirl film for HBO Max. The upcoming Bat project keeps moving fast by Marco Vito Odio from Collider. Yes, this is a really fast developing project, really exciting. Now, I don't know when they actually start shooting. I think they've actually started production already. When are we now? We're nearly in October. If they were to start now, have a break at Christmas, definitely okay to be released, I think, sometime next year, maybe autumn. But don't forget, there's an impending industrial dispute in the entertainment industry in America and in Hollywood, so that could delay a lot of films. We'll have to wait and see, and I'll keep you updated about that. HBO Max's Batgirl keeps taking shape as the project has nabbed Loki's composer Natalie Holt. The news was broke by Holt herself on Twitter, who said she's finally able to tell she'll be scoring the soundtrack of the upcoming DC film. Although the British composer is not a stranger to composing for films and TV shows with dozens of projects in her career, Marvel's Loki was the first superhero production Holt ever scored. It's curious then that Holt's second experience with comic book adaptations will be with DC. That's not curious. Marvel don't own her. Marvel don't own anyone, right? Anyway, making her part of projects developed by the two major players in the superhero universe. Starring Leslie Grace as the titular hero, Batgirl will be the first live-action DC project to come exclusively to HBO Max as Warner Media tests the waters to release more DC films, focusing on lesser-known characters. Well, Batgirl's not a lesser-known character, my friend. On the streaming platform, Batgirl is directed by Aldi El Arabi and Bilal Fallah from a script by Christina Hodson, who has previously written Birds of Prey and the upcoming Flash. There's, Walter is still using Christina for all these projects. He has a lot of faith in her. I hope that faith isn't misplaced. I would say Birds of Prey wasn't problematic within its writing. It was problematic within its commentary. And its commentary came from Margot Robbie. So let's not forget that. Let's not pin that on Christina Hodson. While there's no information about the movie's plot, J.K. Simmons is in negotiations to return as Commissioner James Gordon, a part he played in both versions of Justice League. Simmons' casting discussions might indicate Batgirl is somehow connected to the Snyderverse and Ben Affleck's version of Batman. The Dark Knight will come back to theatres on March the 4th, 2022, with Matt Reeves, the Batman, in which Robert Pattinson will take on the Cowl and Kate. Warner is keeping the lid closed on Batgirl, and there's no information if the heroine will cross over with any version of the Batman. Batgirl doesn't have a release date yet, but the movie should be available in 2022, as I just said. Check out Holt's announcement tweet below. Oh, I'm allowed to say now. Next up, Batgirl. How exciting is that? So, what do we think of her music on Loki? I actually like it. I like it. I think the music on Loki and the theme and everything was great. She's very talented. She's a very talented composer. Unfortunately, Junkie XL and Hans Zimmer can't do every DC movie. More's the pity. But she's very good. I'm sure she will give Batgirl a great theme, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what she gives us. And I'm excited for this movie because I have great faith in the directors of this movie. Bad Boys for Life was a great shock surprise hit, so I can't wait to see the movie next year. It's coming in 2022. So, we have to revise what's coming next year, and this is what we know so far. The Batman, Black Adam, the Flash movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and on HBO Max, Peacemaker, Gotham PD, and Batgirl. So that's what? That's seven DC live action events next year. And you want me to be disappointed about that, be negative about that, be hateful about that, try and trend other events to destroy DC live action projects? No thank you, not me, not this guy. Talk about a celebration of DC Comics. Take a listen to this. DC Comics' 80-year history to be explored in HBO Max documentary. Now, I do have a documentary similar to this, which I bought from Prime Video. It's great, you should check it out. I forgot what it was called actually, but this sounds really awesome too. HBO Max has enlisted the Imagineering story director Leslie Iwerks to helm a 3-part documentary series exploring the legacy of DC Comics. Very exciting. By Richard Fink of Screen Rant. HBO Max is developing a documentary series exploring the 80-year history of DC Comics. HBO Max is expanding its catalogue of DC properties with the upcoming Peacemaker and the John Constantine series alongside films focused on Batgirl and Blue Beetle. While HBO Max has done a good job expanding the narrative adaptations, they have not delved into the rich real-life history behind the DC characters, like Marvel has with documentary specials like Marvel's Behind the Mask and Marvel 616 on Disney+. By the way, HBO Max may not have done this before, but there are so many fabulous DC documentaries out there if you can be bothered to look. So, yeah, HBO Max is what, a year or two old, so, and Disney Plus has been going for longer, so please stop it. That will no longer be the case, as the Imagineering story director Leslie Iwerks is developing a 3-part documentary series for HBO Max exploring the legacy and influence of almost 9 decades of DC Comics. Iwerks is teaming up with producer Greg Berlanti, who produces various Arrowverse shows like Arrow, The Flash and Supergirl. Jim Lee, publisher and chief creative officer at DC Comics, released a statement which can be read below. DC has a rich legacy of over 80 years of iconic storytelling, from the introduction of the genre defining superhero Superman in 1938 to the amazing movies, TV shows, cartoons and games and comics which have been synonymous with the superheroism for generations. Thereafter, we are so excited to dive into this history and bring fans along this amazing journey. So I can't wait to see what they've got planned for us here. Very exciting. Iwerks, the granddaughter of Mickey Mouse co-creator Ub Iwerks, is an accomplished documentarian. She was nominated for an Outstanding Notification Special Emmy in 2008 for her documentary The Pixar Story. Yeah, that's pretty good. The Imagineering story was one of the launch titles for Disney Plus and earned critical acclaim and a large fan base for its extensive look inside the history of Disney theme parks. More information on the project could be revealed at the upcoming DC Fandom event, but it's clear her detailed, thoughtful work looking at the various Disney properties can certainly give fans of DC Comics hope they will get a rich and fulfilling documentary special, and I'm sure we will. Now, you know, some of the Snyderverse fans could talk about not a plan and there's nothing, you know, there's nothing to be excited about. I think I'm excited about everything. I don't think, I know. And things like this are freaking amazing. A 3-part documentary by someone who's not just going to say action and just go through the motions. That's not what we're looking at here. We are looking at something very exciting, very detailed. So if you don't know much about the history of DC Comics, and I know a bit, but I don't know everything, and I think this will really fill in the blanks for me, and it'll fill in the blanks for anyone who's interested. So, very excited about this 3-part DC history documentary. Bring it on, bring it all on, inject it in my veins. Oh dear, every family, every fandom has its group of troublemakers, and DC fandom is no different. You would imagine all of us loving the DC brand, or being fans of it and loving characters, all of them, maybe some of them, we'd all be on the same page. So, the Snyderverse community are up to it again. This time, they want a trending event on October 16th, 2021, when DC Fandom is live online. Although this doesn't surprise me because they attempted the same thing with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, but David Ayer put a stop to it. Now, of course, by this, it looks like people are afraid. The studio is afraid of the trend. Of course they are. Listen, I'm not saying having trending restore the Snyder Cut events isn't a good idea and it doesn't send a message. It does. But why you're doing it is the point, isn't it? Why are you doing it? Are you really doing it to help restore the Snyderverse, or are you actually doing it, you know, just to say, look, we trended over what they're planning and what they're advertising and what's to come. Isn't that good? Can they trend higher than DC fandom? It's going to be interesting because don't forget, when people talk about DC fandom, they may not necessarily hashtag it. But the Snyderverse community will of course make sure they hashtag it. Also, it's just going to be the same group of people retweeting all the time, which means that they're doing it on purpose. They're trending on purpose, right? That's the difference. What do I think about this? Listen, I can't tell people not to do something. Fill your boots. As someone who's so excited for what's to come, but is also fighting to restore the Snyderverse because I loved what Zack Snyder did, but I choose not to be negative about the future. That's the thing with me. So I don't like the fact they're doing this. It's utterly toxic, and I got myself in a few arguments with some of these people, one of them actually calling me mentally ill. You're right, I am mentally ill. I do struggle with mental illness and I'm supposed to take medication, but instead of becoming a vegetable and losing who I am, I use meditation to control my mental illness. So calling someone mentally ill because you disagree with them on social media isn't a very nice thing, but it just proves the face of some of that fandom, doesn't it now? Because if we start name calling because we don't win, because we don't get our own way, because we're faced on someone who's working on a higher intellect than you are. And this is the problem with most of these people, not all. They're not very intelligent. They're angry. The Snyderverse wasn't restored and there's plans for other films, right? And, you know, we know Warner Brothers Pictures are rebooting the franchise. It's what needed to happen. We know that. As great as Zack's movies are, and I love them, it wasn't working, was it? We know that. Is there a place to restore the Snyderverse? Of course there is. HBO Max, or call it an Elseworld, and still release it in cinemas. It wouldn't be a central universe, but it'd be a lot of fun to see Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. Listen, if I thought these people genuinely wanted to hashtag an event at the same time as James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and the same time as DC fandom for genuinely fighting for Restore the Snyderverse, I wouldn't mind. What I'm going to do is on that day is hashtag Restore the Snyderverse and DC fandom multiple times. That's what I'm going to do. They don't like that because these are either or people. One of them saying to me, you don't think Justice League should happen or it will have blah blah. I didn't even say that. Everybody knows. Anyone who knows me knows I want the Snyderverse restored. I fought to release the Snyder Cut. So, but as usual, as I said to this person, as usual, you're very good at spreading false propaganda, whether it's about me or the community or the studio or Walter Hamada. They're very, very good. They don't really like working on facts. They will do anything to spread negativity about the future of DC live action. Something, you know, I'm extremely excited about. And if I heard today or tomorrow that they were restoring the Snyderverse, I'd be equally very excited about it. But there's ways and means you go about a fight. And this isn't the way. The way that some of these people talk is embarrassing. It's not the whole Snyderverse community, it's a small portion. But they're ruining it for everybody else. Because if you've got a portion that are calling people mentally ill because they can't one-up them in a conversation, in a heated debate, you've got a bit of a problem, haven't you? I think you have. And very, very sad. Now, how did I get into this kind of toxic debate yesterday? Well, I think a female Snyderverse fan started as usual. They're telling us not to do it, blah, blah, blah. We're bringing it on, we're doing it. You just trigger people. So I quote tweeted her. I told her to fill her boots. I'm not going to beg you not to do an event. I'm not scared. DC Fandom is a great place and a great community and a great advert for future DC comics, DC live actions, DC animation. It's very exciting for so many people. Now, if you want to bring negativity to it, that's entirely up to you. Now, as you know, I'm a really positive person about DC, about the Snyderverse, about lots of other DC as well. I love it. I love DC, and Zack did a great job. But as a central universe, as a franchise that was going to make top dollar, it simply didn't work. And we all know that. Even the people fighting to restore the Snyderverse, like you and me, know that. But unfortunately, some people are so biased by their own fandom, they don't get it. Some people are just here for Zack Snyder, and that's fine. That's okay. But I'm sick and tired of you in my timeline. You know, we hear some good news and you lot are there, spoiling it. You're like the fucking Grinch who stole Christmas. You are. And I'm sick of you. So this is what I'm going to do on Twitter from now on. I'm going to take your negativity back to you. I'm going to quote tweet you with my propaganda and hot take and then mute you so I don't see your reply. Have some of that. Because it's about time people took the fight to these people, because you are ruining the DC experience for fans, for purists who are just not supporting one director. And it's a shame. I will continue to fight to restore the Snyderverse, but I won't do it dirty. I won't be you, and I won't attack people who are not interested in Snyder's universe. That's fair enough. In a democracy and in a free-thinking society, we are allowed to want the future of DC to happen. The projects that are coming are so exciting. We have this discussion every day, don't we? And to see this negativity, to see these attacks on the studio, members of the studio, ordinary human beings, the bullying, the direct threats, calling people mentally ill, as was done to me yesterday, of course by someone who hasn't got their own picture on their profile. That's no surprise at this point. That's how cowardly they are. It's easy to attack me when you're not near me, right? How tall am I? 6 foot. I'm gymmed up. Of course you're not going to attack me in real life. You're going to attack me via the internet. But there's no point attacking me, because mostly, because of my experience of Hollywood and in Hollywood and the entertainment industry, I actually know what I'm talking about. I talk constructively about things. I keep on saying, who knows what can happen with the Snyderverse and restoring it? Who knows? I've told you about the wrongdoings and where they went wrong. And I think Zack and the studio at that point were both to blame, because they weren't willing to compromise with each other. It was a fight from day one. Christopher Nolan having to stand like a security guard on the set of Man of Steel just to stop certain people ruining what he, David Goyer and Zack Snyder had planned, and thank God he did. It was a fight from the beginning. Difficult. And made even difficult now because people like Walter Hamada and Jim Lee and Ann Sarnoff are trying to fix this mess, because they didn't create this mess. Let's remember that. This mess was created by the leadership then of Warner Brothers. Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, David Goyer, who just parachuted from the franchise after Man of Steel. They're to blame. As much as I love Zack Snyder, he's part of the blame. He made great movies for DC, but he wasn't willing to compromise with the studio. Because when you're playing with other people's money, when you're playing with other people's budgets and IPs, you have to come to the table halfway at least. I'm not talking about bending the knee and, you know, betraying your morals and your creative, you know, your creative freedom. But you are working on DC. They want to make top dollar. And basically, he was getting in the way of that. As brilliant as his films are, arty films are great, but that's not what they were after. You know, Joker movie is an arty movie. They took a gamble on it, basically nearly spent next to nothing on it and made over $1 billion globally. Zack Snyder's movies didn't do that. No DCEU movies have done that apart from Aquaman. That says something. The broader audience isn't coming to the table to watch anything that's DCEU. That's why they're rebranding it. That's why they're doing documentaries about DC and putting Blue Beetle and Batgirl and Green Lantern all on HBO Max and doing other projects cinematically. From around 7 to 10 DC live action projects a year. How exciting is that? Why is that negative? Why is that a problem to these people? So when we talk about having a hashtag event on the same day and same time as DC Fandom, we have to look at the motivations. The motivations in terms of release the Snyder Cut were good and pure. These are not good motivations. This is not about restoring the Snyderverse. It's about trying to embarrass the studio and say, we outtrended you. You know that. You know that to be true. And that's why you get triggered when I say it. Because you know you don't care about restoring the Snyderverse anymore. You don't. It's not a fight for you. There's a lot of people who are passionate about restoring the Snyderverse, but there's a lot of people who are not. Because anyone with any decency would know that having a trended event on the same day as DC Fandom is something that actually could cancel a big announcement at DC Fandom. Let's not forget, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, the Ayer Cut, could be announced at DC Fandom. You are taking a big risk by doing this on that day. Because we know you are going to trend really high. And you're going to share fake propaganda to say the Snyderverse is more popular than with their future plans. Which of course isn't true, because any old idiot can create a trending event. Just hashtag the same thing again and again and again and get retweets. It's easy. DC Fandom could do it, but they're not going to do it. Because the event is going to be popular in itself. So for you people who are getting ready to write something from your basements in the comments down below, think about the Ayer Cut. Think about the chance of it being released and then it not being released because what you're about to do. The Snyderverse was going to get restored once they decided to release the Snyder Cut. And then it wasn't because of the behaviour of fans, but mostly of Snyder and Ray Fisher. You all ruined it. We would have had Snyderverse to look forward to now, Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. But you people are not emotionally intelligent. You're always on the attack. I have a motto. Talk about what you love, not what you hate. You can bring up videos here where I've said I didn't like this or that. Well, hey, I'm a DCEU YouTuber, predominantly. So I have to talk about those things constructively, which I try and do. I'm not personal. I try not to be personal in any way because you don't get any respect in life by insulting people using personal insults. You're just a basic then. You're a meaningless person that nobody gives a shit about once you get personal. And I hope I've never done that. I hope. Maybe when I was a kid I did that. Maybe now and again when I have family arguments I've done that. But publicly on social media and over movies I've never done that. But a lot of you people do. And you've really got to think about this now. You've got to think, as I say, about the Ayer Cut. This is a huge event, DC Fandom, and you really shouldn't be scheduling a Restore the Snyderverse event. But I know why you are. I get it. I get your motivations. It's toxic. It really is. And you know what? The whole fan community sees it as toxic because even though people love Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, they're calling you out on these type of things. Jesus Christ, David Ayer had to persuade you people not to do, release the Ayer Cut event when James Gunn's Suicide Squad was about to be released. We know what you were playing at. We know what you were trying to do. And it's sad that we've come to this. That there's a division within the fandom. A fandom I was a big part of during the release of the Snyder Cut battle. A battle that we won ultimately, but we won it cleanly. Yeah, there was toxic bullies there. I was attacked by them, of course. But they didn't win. We won. The ones who were talking about what they love. The people putting up gifs of Snyder's universe. They're the people who won Not the people who scream and shout, waving their fist at WB. They're the dense ones. They're the ones who are not too smart. So before you do this event, think about David Ayer, think about the haircut, because you are putting it at risk. For once, use your brains. Use your brains, because you could ruin it again. You ruined Restore the Snyderverse. You could ruin Release the Haircut. There's still a chance. Don't forget, you keep on kind of @ing and hashtagging Discovery, but when you're toxic, they're also watching you. And the more toxic you are, the more chance you won't get what you want. It's time to use your brains and stop attacking others. Stop name calling, because it's not working. You see, you're just little people, and I'm me. Now, I may not have lots of subscribers and viewers, but in my world, I'm quite a big deal. Quite well known in this little island of Cyprus. So I'm not Tom Cruise famous or very famous at all, but I get a lot of drinks bought for me when I go Iron Apple clubbing every single fucking night. Because I'm a friendly guy. People saw me on a reality show. People know what I'm doing. They've been to see me, you know, perform the plays that I write and direct. People know me. They know what type of chap I am. So attacking me on the internet doesn't do anything to me. It makes me sad that you would say that you would call someone mentally ill and think that you've won something. I've won. I have won. Because I've driven you so low in the trigger train that you had to say that to me. But no one has to say anything. I'm right. The reason this event has been scheduled during DC Fandom is to say we beat DC Fandom. Nobody's interested in the future DC live action projects. Well, I've got a bit of a shock for you, Restore the Snyderverse community, or some of you, the toxic ones. Everyone's excited for the Batman, Black Adam, the Flash, Aquaman, and, you know, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman, and Val Zod's Superman, and I could go on. There's so many more projects. It is exciting. And if you think Zaslav's going to cancel those projects, no, he likes that plan. He's happy. And if they make money and that this works, and we don't know, but it is all about next year, and we will see. And if it all fails, you can all gloat. I mean, it'll be very hard to be online, but I'll have to put up with your gloating and I'll talk about it. And we'll have to see what the next step is after that. But when you become impossible to interact with, because the studio doesn't like most of you, as you know. And if the studio don't like you, they're purposely not going to restore the Snyderverse. Because you're under some impression that Zaslav is going to remove everyone. Even if they remove Toby, right? Even if they, let's say they sack Jeff Johns from doing Stargirl. And Sarnoff isn't going anywhere, right? And if Walter Hamada's multiverse strategy succeeds, he's not going anywhere anyway. And Jim Lee is certainly not going anywhere. You ain't going to win how you think you're going to win. You may restore the Snyderverse, but you won't sack the people you think of as your enemies, as Zack Snyder's enemies. You see, negativity is hard for people like me, because I love DC. I love the Snyderverse. I love all the films we've had thus far, most of them, right? Every franchise has its duds, like Wonder Woman 84, but it's still a watchable movie. Mistakes have been made, and now they're looking to correct these mistakes. And every time something exciting happens, and every time you shit all over it, you make people go against what you're trying to achieve. And what I hope you're trying to achieve is not to destroy Warner Brothers and DC live action, but to restore the Snyderverse. And if you're using Zack Snyder's name in toxicity and a battle to destroy DC live action, you really don't understand what Zack Snyder is truly about. Zack Snyder is about artistic integrity, making beautiful art, making great DC films and films in general. He's not about your negativity, but of course, he will stick up for you because, of course, you're fans of his. So he's not going to throw you well, actually, now he's getting a bit more important and more successful, especially if you know, this Star Wars centric show he's doing or movie on Netflix succeeds, then some of your negativity, well, I think he will throw you under the bus over it. Yeah, the more successful people get, the more they don't want, you know, Zach, your fans are a bit toxic, mate. Then he'll call them out. He'll call you out. So be very, very careful. For me, it's about what I love and not what I hate. My advice to you is celebrate the DC universe of Zack Snyder and stop talking about things and people you don't like. It's utterly triggering, it's negative, and you really are turning people against you. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives, and I will see you in the next edition of the DCEU Daily. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection, and I will see you again tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.